Today I'm talking to Ney Torres, founder of the Financially Free podcast. You know, everybody's beginning to talk about inflation and the start of a new commodities cycle, but it's tough to find investments with an extremely attractive risk-reward profile. Well, I think we have one for you today. And even better, it's a special situation with a high probability catalyst. But as always, remember, we're just presenting this opportunity as a research candidate, and you should not take anything in this podcast as investment advice. And now, Ney Torres. Ney, how's it going?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. Hi, Evan. How are you?
Pretty good. So, you want to tell everybody just a little bit about yourself, just briefly? I know you got a podcast. You're an investor. You got your hat on many hooks, I guess is one way to say it. Who are you?
Entrepreneur. That's how I call myself. Just to make it easier. I've created a company in marketing, digital marketing in 3 different countries. I just adore Warren Buffett and value investing approach since I'm 20 years ago. I was also studying with the best traders in the world. So that makes me kind of unique because I had 2 different hats that are opposite.
Right.
So I understand trading, I understand value investing, and they don't get along very well, right?
Yeah, definitely true. I guess maybe unless you're going for the special situation route where you have to kind of have an eye on trading because a lot of these opportunities are short term.
I realize with time that they're joined by the hip, right? So pretty much say as a value investor, you rely a lot in statistics. So do traders.
So you want to talk about a company today that I guess you've been in for a while and I've been in for a while as well. It's been kind of a wild ride. But at the end of the day, we both think that there is significant opportunity there, but also there's significant risk. What company is that?
Ticker symbol is OCO, and the name of the company is Oroco Resource Corporation, Corps. I always forget the full name, but yeah. I've been in that stock probably 5 years, 6 years already.
Interesting, 5-6 years.
So a 600% increase, and I hold it all the way down to the collapse. Well, let's call it collapse. However, the value is still there. So if you're a value kind of investor, you're holding it or buying more because the value is still there.
Right. And you're kind of connected with management in some way. You've had them on your podcast, the Financially Free podcast, which is a great podcast, by the way. You've interviewed them. So you have some good insights and into what the company is and all the little details and the process and everything. So I thought you would be a pretty good person to talk to. Now, let's talk a little bit about what the company does. What's the situation there?
All right. So let's define risk as the probability of losing your capital. All right. Not as volatility. If you see it as volatility, then Oroco is really a volatile stock, so it's going to be risky. But if you see the fundamentals, it's not really that risky because it has no debt. They are pretty much a property with copper, and we can value how much copper is in it. There's expensive reports. Say they have taken like $20 million just to have a piece of paper saying this is the net present value, the value of the copper under the ground. I think there's a lot of discount because it's in Mexico, and so people assume there's a lot of risk on that, and they may be right, they may be not. I think if it's say a $3 stock and it's trading right now at, I don't know, let's make a number, 25 cents.
I think 33 cents Canadian or something.
All right, so that's a big margin of safety. So you do have to be able to rationalize these things and put a number onto it. What's the risk of this never developing in 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, 3 years?
Right.
So I was interviewing management because the stock, some other people were doing it, but they stopped doing it. And I thought, well, the price is so low now that I want to do that interview when it was at the bottom and just talk to other people about it. And the bad thing, let's want to talk about the risk first. Risks.
Let's talk about a little bit about the situation here, because this is quite an interesting situation. Normally, when you're looking at a junior explorer or something like that, there's a lot of risk in terms of not being able to find a deposit. constantly spending shareholder money and eventually they just go bankrupt, or it just kind of goes on forever burning shareholder capital. But in this situation, they actually knew that there was a property that had a significant ore body, and all they had to do was basically do a little bit of drilling and get the resource estimates up to kind of a contemporary standard, and then they could sell the property. And so if you look back at the historic numbers, you can get a really good idea of how much copper was in the ground there, and, rough grades. But as they've done work, they've kind of uncovered a little bit more copper, and the price didn't reflect necessarily the per share value of the property once sold. So there was, kind of an arbitrage. And actually, when you first brought it up to me, you said that this is kind of like a workout, but not in the traditional way.
Exactly. So we're talking about probably 4 or 5 years. When I brought it up is because I was doing a podcast episode with somebody, and I always end up asking, what's your best idea? And it came up, and it was very simple. As you already mentioned, we already knew because of historical holes. Okay, so let's explain this to everyone. It's, you have a piece of land and you start making holes and hope. That's why mining is so risky, because you don't know what's underground until you put one of these holes, and put out what's in it.
Right.
And even then, you have to make assumptions of what's between this hole and the next one.
Yeah.
So how you de-risk this thing is you make more holes in between, get more statistics, and that's really expensive. So these guys come out of a legal problem because somebody tried to sell the property to someone else 20 years ago. This guy didn't pay and resold the property. So there was like 3 different jurisdictions involved. And I had to give prompts to Marius Konechny. He brought it up. I was interviewing him, and he said, this legal issue has nothing to do with the value.
Right.
Because they solved, at that moment, they were solving the legals, and it was almost solved completely. And we knew how much was underground because of historical holes. So the thing about these holes is that legally they expire. It's not like the copper goes bad like milk. Just legally, you have to do it again. And so they needed more money to do the holes again. That took a couple of years. The stock went up probably 600% since then, or 300%, depends where you jumped in.
I think it went from about, when I saw it at the bottom, is about 4 cents, and then went up to just under $4, if I remember correctly.
Oh, yeah. That was probably before 2017, so that was not 5 years ago. That's probably almost 8 years ago.
Mm.
But when I saw it, it was already like popping up. 4 cents. I probably started buying at 50 cents. It went up to 360, and it went down to today, which is, let's say, 30 cents. So what management has been doing is just raising money and making more holes. And the environment has been horrible to them. You for raising money, if you have no debt, you rely on the stock price, and that has been horrible. So the biggest risk with them is more dilution, or some dilution.
Right.
And yeah, your guess is as good as mine, but I understand they're not really happy of diluting either. It's just the card they have been handed.
So where are they in the process right now?
So they have this, there's a pre-feasibility study, there's a feasibility study, and there's another one. They are in the going to the feasibility study. So what they're doing right now is raising more money to expand these holes, because they have found that there's more copper. What they were doing before is just going for the sure thing in hopes that the stock price will appreciate. Hopefully they raise money in a higher price valuation, and then they can risk a little bit going outside the secure area. But yeah, that hasn't been happening because of the price of the stocks. And I have to bring something up. If you see all the miners, they kind of move the same. Makes no sense, but they do.
Mm-hmm.
So a mining stock that's a comparable that I use in Spain moves exactly the same as Oroco, which is in Mexico. And That makes no sense to me unless some big fund or something like that moves the stock price and decides to get into all minor stocks.
Right.
Yeah, that's the only rationalization I can bring up. So that's basically saying the price doesn't reflect the value.
So right now it's trading at 30 cents a share, or about that 33 cents a share. What's it worth per share?
The last updates were 1.5 billion with a $4 copper. Let's hope copper keeps going up. I think so.
Right.
And fully diluted is rounded up to 300 million shares.
Mm-hmm.
So let's divide that 1.5 billion by 300 million. How much is that? 5?
It's 1.5 billion US is the value of the property. And then, divide by 300 shares, 300 million shares, and get $5 US. And then Canadian is, in Canadian dollars, 685.
That's a good risk reward. But I do have to say that at the end of the day, the value of the company will be decided on the negotiating table.
Right.
So what discount you use on that or not, or maybe a premium, depends really on the environment, how many people are fighting for the property, if there's any. So yeah, but the good thing about waiting is that copper keeps going up, the thesis becomes better, and yeah, that's the interesting part. And you have a leverage played on copper, which is a great thesis, by the way.
Now, obviously, 685, they're not going to get 685 per share for it. They might get half of that. So that would be what, 340, something like that. But then also you got to factor in dilution. So this is, they're not done doing the property yet. They still have more holes to drill. They have more sampling to do, and they have to go through some engineering studies. And so I believe that they mentioned that they had to raise about 25 million
Sounds about
to
right.
finish that.
Sounds
Right. So
assume,
that would add quite a bit of dilution onto it, right? Because right now you said that the market cap is 50 million US roughly.
yeah, just saw it right now. It's 55 million US.
55 million. Okay. So any idea what the final share count will be when this thing gets sold?
Good question. Because we have a couple of variables that are really you have to weigh them in. Not only dilution, but we don't know what price they're gonna start diluting at. Probably they're gonna do it in stairway. But the I've seen historically discounts of you're using 50%, right? Which is good. But I've also seen premium paid. Not very usual, but you have a range, right? It's from, hey, how much is this worth? 1.5 billion today. It made up, if copper keeps going up for say a year or two, that number is gonna explode. Could double easily. And yeah, and then you sit down on the table, and that day it's gonna, we don't know if it's a 50% discount, it's a 30% discount, 20% discount. We really don't know that, but it's a good margin of safety. I think that pinpointing an exact number is just frugality. You just put this idea between your top 10 and see which one, if it's has space on your portfolio or not.
Right. Yeah. The big risk with these type of companies is that they're going to drill. They're going to find something, quote unquote, find something. And then when they start drilling, what they found turns out not to actually exist. So that's a big risk with exploration companies. But with Oroco, they know that there is resource there that's previously been drilled or almost completely drilled out, and they're just redoing the work. So that first risk is not going to materialize. Going on to the second risk, that's really jurisdiction, right? So Mexico went through a period where the president was AMLO, and he was quite hostile towards resource extraction in Mexico. So he was nationalizing lithium and wanted to put together a national miner. And he was looking at other strategic metals, copper being one of them. And there was a lot of risk, a lot of fear that basically Orco was going to have its deposit almost taken away from them. Not quite taken away from them, but there's going to be significant economic
Harm?
significant economic harm that will come to the company because of that. But, AMLO is now out. There's a new lady in. I'm not sure what her name is, but she seems quite a bit more friendly to mining.
And believe it or not, so she's not in theory.
Oh, she's not?
She has a PhD or something like that in biology, and she's very like pro environment. But here's the thing: what I've learned through studying history is that economics dictate politics most of the time. So that's my bet, really. It's what's happening right now. Also, Oroco is a piece of course, deserts have their own little animals and stuff doing but it's pretty much a desert.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's really hard to create one of these mines. These mines are really hard to develop. Say in Ecuador, we're starting again in Ecuador, but you have a whole jungle right here, right? So
right.
That's difficult. There you have a bunch of dirt. So yeah, that was my bet that economics will dictate politics, and that's what's going on. So now politicians are realizing, oh, this is a great point to create a lot of jobs in Sinaloa and all those things, and that's what's going on. So it's coming back to life.
And there was an open pit mining ban, I believe, that was for new concessions in Mexico, but it didn't actually apply to Oroco. Is that correct?
So Oroco already has some concessions, and also part of the thesis, and when I was looking at this, it was assuming that the government did come and take it out. They take it from investors. So I started analyzing and asking questions to management and all of that, and turns out they said, yeah, but they have to pay for it, a fair price. And so the stock is so low that even a fair price, not the best price, but a fair price, it's 5, 6, 7x today.
This episode is brought to you by Event Driven Daily. If you're spending too much time trying to uncover special situation stocks, make sure to look at Event Driven Daily's Morning Brew newsletter. Each month, we scour the internet to find as many special situation opportunities as possible, and then send each and every special situation to free subscribers in a neatly packaged email. This service is absolutely free and will save you hours each month trying to source special situation ideas. Go to www.eventdrivendaily.com and look for the subscribe button at the top of the page. That's www.eventdrivendaily.com. Even an unfair price would be quite advantageous at these prices.
Exactly. So that de-risks the thesis. And right now, a politician came to them and said, I didn't realize this was so big and useful for the area. So now I want to help you take it to the next level. And that's what's happening.
So it's located in Sinaloa, right?
Yeah.
So Sinaloa has a bit of a name for itself with the cartels or whatever, the Mexican drug lords. There was previously, and this is quite funny, there was previously a military action close to the property. So if you like action in your stocks, then Oracle might be it. But apparently they were fighting the drug cartel close to the property. So I don't know, maybe there's a war risk when this is not exactly Iraq or
No.
Afghanistan or something like that.
Right. And I need to do some due diligence there. I go really deep in due diligence. So what I did is I hired somebody that was working there back in the day just to have like a consulting one-on-one with me for a couple of hours. And I asked that question like, hey, tell me the truth. How was it? Or were there people with shotguns everywhere and stuff like that? And she was like, no, pretty much no. And then I kind of go and find these people that used to work in these companies and ask them, like, what do you think about this? So after my due diligence, I came out and be like, okay, yeah, well, even if somebody has a machine gun around there, the property's still there. But seems like they're not like living in there. It's not like they're doing stuff that they shouldn't. Um, Somebody got killed once. That was a problem in the town because they are near a town, and there was like a shooting, and yeah, somebody, I think it was a priest of that town, got killed. And Oroco did, I think they did the right thing. They closed the door. They were like, okay, let's do this right. Let's
Right.
figure out what's going on. But that was it. And yeah, the value's still there.
Right. And, the US has shootings, Canada has shootings. So this is not exactly, a deal breaker.
Welcome
But
to the real world. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, and it's also not Colombia where, you might get your property seized by the cartels and then the army has to kind of try and fight for territory or something like that.
Hopefully
So,
not.
yeah, for sure. Uh,
Yeah.
for sure. And actually, recently the company came out with an announcement that it's been included in a strategic plan for Sinaloa, I believe.
Yeah. Some plan for to develop the area.
Right. So the politicians are loving this one. They see it as a big job creator. And, the
About time,
Sinaloa,
right?
pardon me?
About time.
Yeah, about time for sure. And so I think that, management's meeting with the politicians. They're really looking into getting all their T's and I's dotted. I guess you don't dot T's, do you? You might probably cross them. But
Yeah.
it looks like from a permitting perspective, they're not going to really hit any snags. It looks pretty promising. I don't see any other really big roadblocks. Maybe somebody from the national government does something crazy with resources, but even then it's still got to get bought out at a fair price. They're grandfathered in. Any open pit mining ban is not going to count for existing concessions, and I think that's been kind of worked through the courts, and so the courts have kind of said that too.
And I don't know if you noticed, but there's politician pendulum. Have you heard about that? Perfect. We are going through a change back to capitalism slowly. And I can tell from South America, Argentina, liberalism, Ecuador, we're coming out of this new communism. Now we're going back to, let's go back to capitalism. And I think the whole continent is going back to those things. And yeah, slow but surely. It makes sense. It
Right.
just makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty simple thesis. You got the price, you got what it's worth. Yeah, they just have to drill some holes
Raising the money.
and get those resource estimates up and then get the engineering studies done and then sell the property. And the property's worth multiples of what the price is today. And the
By the way,
risks, yeah.
they could sell it tomorrow
Hmm.
because they already have this data.
Hmm.
Uh, they're making it bigger now,
Right.
and so you could see a good return of their investment for those $20 million. They have done a great job before. A lot of people don't like them, but I really think that's a lot of bad luck. But yeah, mining is hard to understand. This one is very de-risked.
There's significantly less risk here compared to the regular miners that you would look at.
And let me ask,
So, yeah,
sorry to interrupt you, but before I forget about this idea, Evan, where are you going to invest today that AI won't disrupt completely in 3, 5, 10 years? And you need those 3, 5, 10 years of cash flow to have a good valuation. Where else are you going to put your money?
I'm going to buy a private article writing company.
I
Yeah,
mean,
no, I mean, there's,
even
yeah,
tankers, they can be disrupted by new operations and stuff like AI is going to make. But a piece of land with copper, that doesn't get that easy nowadays.
right. I think that basically the closer that you get to resources, the less likely that AI is going to disrupt you. I mean, AI can come up with different sorts of technologies possibly in the future, but we still have the periodic table. We still need those minerals, right? Anything technology based, I think, is at risk.
And yeah, exactly. So keep that in mind.
Right. So what does management think about this company? You know, obviously they're cheerleaders for the company. They haven't actually been good promoters typically, you know, going back a couple of years. They've been kind of passive in promoting the company.
I think they're engineers and they are not marketers. That's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to them. I was seeing Oroco for years, and I don't think they're mean spirit or running a Ponzi scheme or anything like that. So, because I'm very biased about just showing companies or interviewing people, because then my name gets attached to them.
Right.
And but thank God after those, I think we started moving a little bit the boat, and I started putting this video out, and they took it. Now they're posting like every day. They have some every other post, and the communication got way better. And yeah, even though
Definitely a major upgrade.
yeah, I hope they realize it's an investment for the long term. Because if I'm gonna do due diligence, I want to see the track record online, and that just didn't happen before.
Right. And so managements have actually been buying shares in this. I know that the CFO, can't remember his name. Do you remember his name?
And no, really, I'm super bad at that.
You interviewed him.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, Adam, Adam, I like Adam.
Okay, yes.
I have like
So
two
Adam's been
interviews
buying
a day. Right.
Adam's been buying shares, or he did at least in 2024, I believe.
Yeah, I, I don't pay that much. It's a great indicator, right? But I would love to know what percentage of your net worth it is.
Right.
So I take it with a grain or two of salt. But of course, it's great that management is doing that, even
Yeah,
if they were
definitely
not.
putting your money where your mouth is definitely,
Right,
you know, a big plus.
right.
So,
And people buy for a reason, but they sell for 1,000 reasons. So even though if the president starts selling the stock, we always wonder why. He has cancer, he has, who knows, right? But the value is still there. The margin of safety is there.
right. Just the price has been kind of frustrating, you know, it's kind of drifted down, we should say, from 360 to 30 cents or something like that. So, but you know, this is where your patience definitely gets tried. And eventually, if the value's there, they're trying to sell the property and it's a good deposit and the situation is okay in Mexico, they're going to be able to sell it. So, and then you get paid eventually. But
And
it's definitely testing patience, we should
in,
say.
interestingly enough, they, China is the biggest buyer of this thing. Asia is the biggest buyer of the product. You will think they will cross the river and just sell it to the US, but not really. Interesting. So probably the buyer is going to be somewhere in Asia, if I had to guess.
Right.
There's 5, 6 big players, but yeah, don't get surprised if that happens.
In your podcast with Adam, I gave you a list of questions, and one of the questions was, when's this thing going to be sold? And that's really, you know, the $1 million question. He says that they're just not, majors are just not yet interested in acquiring properties or projects, at least not, the feeding frenzy hasn't begun. So it's a little bit slow right now, but it could be sold at any time.
Right, and this is a stock that $10,000 will move it in a bad day.
Hmm.
So, if you're trying to time the market, do let me know if you're good at it. I suck at it. So, my only competitive advantage in this is patience.
Right.
I,
Is that why you went from trading to value investing?
yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I went into real estate too, and then I realized, well, I'm holding a property for 10, 20 years, right? Which I
Right.
am, and I'm happy with it. Why don't I do that with stocks? Um, yeah, exactly. Same thing.
Well, the nice thing about trading is that your stocks can go down over the short term, right? Within a day or something like that. With value investing, typically always when I buy a stock, it goes down first, even if it's a winner. So,
Exactly. Exactly.
and
So
usually I have to wait a couple months for it to bottom out.
you mentioned it's too bad we sit and have seen its life for all these years and a couple of years, 2, 3 years. Yes, but also we can buy more, right? Can we buy more?
Yeah.
Maybe. Maybe
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else that we should talk about in terms of Oroco? Anything else not said that we should really discuss?
They have a little bit of overhead that shouldn't be there, but it's not gonna break the thesis. It's just an inconvenience.
Right.
What else? They're doing great. Hopefully they will, I don't know, figure a way to, instead of dilute shareholders, they could. I don't know if that's a good idea. It's a bet anyway.
Right.
But hopefully, private bank or something will see this and be like, "Oh, we'll finance the 20 million. Don't dilute it at 30 cents." But what do I know, right? I'm just analyzing this from the outside. They have decades and decades and decades of experience in doing this, and some people complain about the management. I think they're okay.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing what they can, and
yeah, the problem with debt is that, then you got interest payments, and even if it's like a no interest loan or something like that, and with a big balloon payment at the end of the term or whatever, when the debt comes due, you're still at risk of default in that situation. Where if you're selling equity, then you don't default on your equity. So
exactly.
all right, Ney, thanks a lot. Really enjoyed this discussion. It was fun. Hopefully it gave people something to think about. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.